Hey everyone, welcome back to Love Wins, where the truth matters because it's the truth that sets us free. All right, we're continuing on in our series on fear. Last time it got pretty heavy as I went through three different churches through time who have used fear, Christian churches, movements who have used fear to manipulate and control. I don't even believe sometimes it was definitely intentional. At other times I believe probably not. You have to realize that when we're born and raised on fear as a motivator being the norm within Christianity, we just continue to do it. And even when we get set free of one fear factor, like hellfire or purgatory, that idea of motivating people through fear, it's in us. We were born and raised on it, we just continue it. So I want to tell you a bit of my story, and then I want to share a quote with you. It's not something I'm going to do often, but it's so powerful and so applicable to this subject that I just can't not share it. So I grew up Seventh-day Adventist from birth, and Adventist means that we're looking forward to the return of Jesus. Only sadly, often we're not looking forward to it in a positive way. We're actually looking forward to it in a negative way. It's like this imminent event that we're not ready for and we're scared of, and I hope it doesn't happen soon. So I was about 12 years old, and we actually had a fantastic preacher at the time, awesome guy, and he was talking about the second coming of Jesus, and he said, what if it was gonna happen in 5 years, or a year, or 6 months, or a month? What if you knew it was going to happen today? And I was terrified. At 12 years old, I already was feeling guilt over some things in my life that were out of what I knew, sync with what I knew was the good and perfect way. And so because I wasn't perfect, the idea was, well, I'm not ready. Got to be perfect to be ready. That was the idea that I had, which religion often propagates. And that night we got home and it was dark. And we get out of the car, and my mind is still on this, what if it was today? And as I got out of the car, there was this light in the sky that was behind the clouds, and the clouds started moving apart like this, and the light was getting brighter and brighter, and I was like, this is it, man. He is coming, and I am not ready, and I am toast. Turns out it was just the moon. I remember having a dream, and I don't remember if the dream was before this or after this. In the dream, I was on this desolate planet that was completely barren, like it had just been burned to nothing. And I was in a long line of people and wasn't quite sure where the line was headed. And in front of me was the lady who taught us in Sabbath school when I was a kid. Sunday school, Sabbath school, same thing. And so we're in this line, and the line is slowly moving forward. And as we get close to the head of the line, it becomes apparent that they're deciding who leaves this desolate, barren place and goes to heaven and who doesn't. And so we get to the front of the line, and she is chosen for heaven, and I was lost. So you grow up with this idea that Jesus is returning, that the world has a shelf life, it's going to end. And in some ways, that's good news. I mean, you look around at the world and the bad things that happen, you're like, if we could get to the point where this stuff didn't happen anymore, it'd be awesome. I mean, it seems like every day now someone has gone out and shot a bunch of people or whatever. So in that sense, Jesus returning is good news. But when you look at it through the lens of he's only coming for these elite, select few, and making it is pretty well impossible, it's not very good news. And if you add to that the pressure that some people face of, if I don't make it, I'm going to burn and burn and burn and burn, that's much worse. So in this video, I want to address this idea of the second coming of Jesus, the return of Jesus, which should be, the Bible taught, it should be good news. Full stop. But we've made it something else. And when we do that, and it's not just Seventh-day Adventists, by the way. I have pastor friends who are not Seventh-day Adventists, and they were born and raised with these. One guy told me they used to have these camps they'd go to with the youth, and they'd have these scenarios, end time scenario things where they would try and be prepared. And said he was terrified. And what are we doing? Why are we doing this to kids? What's in our psyche, right? It should be this simple. If you love someone, and for whatever the reason you're separated by work, by education, by they're gone away to university, whatever the case may be, and marked on your calendar is the day when you're going to come back together again. There would be no fear in that. There would be no misgivings about that. There would be nothing. It would be that you would be telling people, you'd be preparing, you'd be everything would be built around that day. You would almost get to the point where you're I don't even care what happens after that. I'll deal with whatever needs to be done after that. I want to be with them again. That's how it should be. We should come to the place where we know God and His character and His love for us and the things He has gone through. That day is circled on His calendar. That's what He's living for. Hebrews tells us, for the joy that was set before Him, Jesus endured the cross. He didn't enjoy the cross by any stretch of the wildest imagination. He hated it. He asked if there was some other way that this could be done when He was in Gethsemane. But He kept going forward, and He followed it all the way through, because on the other side was the promise that we would be back with Him in His home for eternity. It's good news from the start to the end if we understand it correctly, if we know the truth. Because if you know the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. And I'm going to hammer that point over and over again, because I want you to be free, and I want you to know you need to know the truth to get there. So, church I belong to now, I told you last video there was this revival in America in the mid-1800s, and out of that revival came what's known today as the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And she's not. If anyone tells you that she was the founder of the church and everything we believe is based on what she said, that's bunk. If you want to know the truth, find out for yourself. Study it out. Her name is Ellen White, and did play a significant role in the founding and development of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We had a magazine back then, we still have it today, called Signs of the Times. Because again, we're a church that's all about looking forward to Jesus coming back. But sometimes the way we do that, the way that gets explained and played out, is not healthy. And she recognized that. Here's what she had to say in an article that she wrote in 1887. The shortness of time is frequently urged as an incentive for seeking righteousness and making Christ our friend. This should not be the great motive with us, for it savors of selfishness. Is it, she asks, necessary that the terrors of the day of God should be held up before us, that we may be compelled to right action through fear? It ought not to be so. Jesus is attractive. He is full of love, mercy, and compassion. He proposes to be our friend, to walk with us through all the rough pathways of life. He says to us, I am the Lord your God. Walk with me, and I will fill your path with light. Jesus, the majesty of heaven, proposes to elevate to companionship with himself those who come to him with their burdens, their weaknesses, and their cares. He will count them as his children, and finally give them inheritance of more value than the empires of kings, a crown of glory richer than has ever decked the brow of the most exalted earthly monarch. She asked the question, like, should we even be doing this thing of motivating people through terror to get them to do right and make Jesus their friend so they're ready when the crisis comes? She says, no, that is not how it should be. He is proposing to us, I want you. Read my story. I have done everything to get you back home with me because that's where I want you to be. And I want you to want to be there. I don't want you to want to be there because you're scared to be somewhere else that's worse. What human relationship, what marriage proposal would ever fly with that kind of story behind it? Honey, will you marry me? If you don't, you're going to burn forever. But do it because you love me. But if you don't, do it. But if you don't, it doesn't even begin to make sense because it's not the truth. Again, I told you before, if what you believe about God starts to not make sense, you need to reevaluate what it is you believe. Because if you know the truth will make you free and you'll be free indeed. So Jesus, I read a couple, it's pretty long, couple paragraphs there. Jesus said it this succinctly: it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. That is his goal. It's his desire. It's what he wants. It's what he's been working for. It's what he's been planning for. It's the whole story. If you belong to a church that tries to manipulate you through fear, you need to leave. If you belong to a church that tries to manipulate you through fear to give money, to give time, to do this, to do that, you need to leave. It's not healthy. It's not the truth. And I don't care what name's on the building. Even if it's Seventh-day Adventist, you need to leave. Find another Seventh-day Adventist church, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, that doesn't do those things. Last summer, I listened to a couple of different podcasts on cults. They all have the same pattern: manipulation through fear to control. It's not Jesus. I invite you, I implore you, find the authentic Jesus and follow him, and your fear will turn to joy. We'll see you next time.